Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, January 30th, 2024 to be deferred. Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move that the aforesaid minutes be deferred.
The question is that the aforesaid minutes be deferred. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it.
Announcements by Your Honour.
I'm in receipt of a letter dated February 2nd, 2024 from the Honourable Santia J. Bradshaw, Deputy Prime Minister and Leader of Government Business, addressed to His Honour the Speaker. Your Honour, the House now stands adjourned until Tuesday, 13th February 2024 at 10 a.m. Pursuant to Standing Order 6.9 of the Standing Orders of the Honourable the House of Assembly, I hereby submit that the public interest requires that the House should meet on an earlier date than that to which the House stands adjourned in order to debate the Law Revision and Law Reform Amendment Bill 2024, Transfer Authority Amendment Bill 2024, and the Labour Clauses Concessions Bill 2024, and to continue debate on the Cybercrime Bill 2023 and the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Amendment Bill 2023. Should you be satisfied that the public's interest so requires, government requests that the House should be summoned to meet on Tuesday, February 6th at 2024 at 10 a.m. Government proposes that the business of the House should be that mentioned above. I am satisfied that the public interest so requires.
The messages from Her Excellency, the President, petitions, papers, government notices, private members' notices, notices of questions, reports from select committees, first reading of bills.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Transport Authority Amendment Bill 2024 and the Labour Clauses Concessions Bill 2024.
The question is that the aforementioned bills be read here first time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it.
Statements by ministers, congratulatory and/or obituary speeches, personal explanations, motions for leave of absence, oral replies to questions, notices of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance, orders of the day.
Honourable Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the suspension of Standing Orders 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, subsection 5, 43, and 44 for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Question is that the aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Meeting, the ayes have it. The aforementioned standing orders are hereby suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Government business, sir.
Before we proceed, government business, I wish to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Maurice Scanterbury, the Honorary Counsel in Calgary. He has been so based for the past 13 years. I also wish to acknowledge the presence of Christine Briggs, Mandy, Yunisakira, Camila Green, and Patrick Tannis.
Order number 1, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology, to resume the debate on the second reading of the Cybercrime Bill 2024.
Honourable Member for St. Joseph.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I suppose speaking on the resumption of the debate on the Cybercrime Bill gives me an opportunity to try to deal with some of the issues that have been raised in the public domain, certainly the editorial of The Nation today, articles in The Nation on the weekend, I think other media, social media and others. because it is clear that there is a tremendous amount of misapprehension and misunderstanding about what the government is doing. It isn't often, sir, that we have the opportunity to go back to the jurisprudential roots of law, but I crave the indulgence of the chamber just to set a broader context before I deal with the specifics of the cybercrime bill. Mr. Speaker, much of what has been said revolves around the notion that this government is seeking to place a statutory fetter or statutory muzzle on the freedom of speech of Barbadians. They've alleged, social media and elsewhere, that this muzzle, this alleged muzzle, this fetter, would redound to the interests of the political class because it is somehow intended to deprive the right-thinking public of Barbados of the opportunity to criticize the government. Nothing could be further from the truth. Mr. Speaker, if you pare back all of that rhetoric and look at the mischief that this bill is intended to deal with, look at how it deals with it, then I think that the Barbadian public would be in a position to consider it in a rational and reasonable way and to rest easy with the efforts of this government. But first, Mr. Speaker, let us talk for just a moment on the rights issue, because as I said, it has been argued that we are looking to take away the freedom of speech from Barbadians. Now, Mr. Speaker, Barbados is governed by the supreme law in the form of our Constitution. And our Constitution at Section 48 says that the Parliament of Barbados shall make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Barbados. Peace, order, and good government of Barbados. Now, what that means is best looked at not in the context of some legal scholar or theoretician. It is best looked at in the context of how we live in a modern Barbados, careful at all times not to erode or destroy the rights of others while preserving our own rights and freedoms. Our Constitution, in fact, says, and it is probably worth just referring to it specifically, in Section 11, the so-called preamble, it says, among other things, that the rights of Barbadians are protected, that every Barbadian, every person in Barbados is entitled to the fundamental rights and freedoms. And it sets out what they are, and they include, sir, freedom of conscience, of expression, and of assembly and association. But it goes on to say that these freedoms are guaranteed subject to such limitations of that protection as are designed to ensure that the enjoyment of those rights does not prejudice the rights and freedoms of others. So our laws and our Constitution must at all times strike a balance between how the rights of individuals are protected while at the same time preserving the rights and freedoms of others. So quite rightly, Mr. Speaker, when somebody says that this Parliament is passing a law that is intended or may have the result of abrogating their rights of freedom of speech, it calls for us to stand back and go to basics. Go to basics, sir. I say to Barbados that we are not at all intending, nor is it our aim, to abrogate anybody's right to speak to take away anybody's freedom of speech. But we must always remember, Mr. Speaker, that a state and a government exists to protect its people. The Constitution says so. When it says that everybody has guaranteed rights and freedoms, but that they are subject to the other people's rights, that they're subject to the need to maintain peace, order, and good government. I started at section 48, so come back to it. Peace, order, and good government. Then, Mr. Speaker, the state has a very serious responsibility of ensuring that there's a balancing done between these competing interests. Let's get straight to the point, Mr. Speaker. What freedom of speech should we guarantee when an individual has sex with a 13-year-old, videotapes it, and broadcasts it all over the internet? Tell me what freedom of speech is to be protected there. What freedom of speech is to be protected when individuals intentionally publish malicious information? Mr. Speaker, this state has a solemn duty to protect individuals against conduct that is either calculated to cause them harm or may result in causing harm. And we can look at the specific sections, sir. But I just want to underscore that this Parliament, this administration, takes its responsibility to maintain peace, order, and good government, not for the benefit of ourselves as a political class, but for the benefit of those individuals who cannot protect themselves. Every single person in this chamber has an opportunity, whether it is in Parliament, on a political platform, through the law courts, through other structures, to defend ourselves and to protect our interests. And we've had to do it from time to time. But I have come to Parliament, I was elected by the people of St. Joseph to stand in the breach for them. And each one of my colleagues here was elected to stand in the breach for the people of their constituency because, Mr. Speaker, we have a solemn obligation to protect those interests. Now, Mr. Speaker, in 2001, we passed into law the Electronic Transactions Act. I believe I contributed in great measure to that. I was the consultant who did all that work for the government then. I was in private practice. And shortly after that, in 2005, Mr. Speaker, we enacted the Computer Misuse Act. You know, the thing about the internet, the thing about this entire media is that it moves so quickly. No sooner have you determined that you've addressed an issue, that things happen and you discover that you need to respond. Our Computer Misuse Act in 2005 used much of the same language as we've adopted in this current bill. I've heard individuals say that there are words in here that are difficult to define, like annoyance and a whole set of things. You know, sir, we've taken that language from a law that is 18 years old, a law that we've had for 18 years. Now, maybe the commentators today did not notice that we've brought back some of that language, but I would venture to suggest that if they were really keen on analyzing the issues and really keen on looking at the law, they would have taken a minute or two to look at what we had, what we have, because this bill is not yet passed, and what we are putting to the public of Barbados on this occasion. Mr. Speaker, the one thing that we know is that misinformation abounds, and regrettably, social media thrives on that kind of stuff. But there is no, one of our bright sparks this morning, I think in the newspaper, said that there are no guardrails on social media. There are no guardrails, and I thought that that was a wonderful expression. Because what a guardrail does, it serves to protect an individual from harm, falling down a step, falling off a cliff. The point is, a guardrail is there to serve to protect. But there are no guardrails in social media, other than when Facebook take down somebody for 4 weeks and then put them back up after that. There are no guardrails, sir. There's no filter. People write what they feel like. They publish what they feel like without regard to the harm that it may cause to individuals. Often, Mr. Speaker, they hide behind the anonymity of social media. They publish things in names that are not their own. They operate their pages that you can't easily identify who the individual is. Many of them live overseas, and because they are technically beyond the reach of our law, they thrive in that environment. Mr. Speaker, what does it benefit us to compel citizens of Barbados to operate in an environment where there is no accountability? Absolutely no accountability. Now, we've taken a very serious look at the way the law stands today. And as Attorney General, I've had to have discussions with the members of the police force. I have no role in prosecutions or anything of the sort, but I feel that as an Attorney General, it is my obligation to offer how a law could be interpreted and so on. Whatever the police do or don't do is a matter for them. I'm not in the business of directing them. But on several occasions, Mr. Speaker, things have been published on social media, and we have had to look hard at the legislation as it stands and ask ourselves the question, is this law adequate to deal with the circumstance that has presented itself? Regrettably, it has not been. Regrettably, it is not. The good thing is, Mr. Speaker, that we are not in this world by ourselves. And where we are now, many other people, many other countries have been. And their response at a global level has been to establish a treaty called the Budapest Convention. And the Budapest Convention simply sets out to establish what is best practice in relation to the area of cybercrime. So for those individuals who think that we have gone out on a frolic of our own and tried to come up with all kinds of crazy, bizarre stuff, let me assure you, Mr. Speaker, that that is not the case. The Budapest Convention, there's only one other country in the Caribbean who's a member of it, who's a party to it, that's Trinidad. Other Caribbean countries have indicated their willingness to sign up and become parties to the convention. But the Budapest Convention, Mr. Speaker, has as parties, I believe it's in the region of 100 member states across the world, including England, the birthplace of the Commonwealth and the root of much of our legal thinking, Canada, the US, India, a whole raft of other countries, all of whom have recognized that the state of anarchy that has been allowed to persist in the world in relation to cybercrime must not be allowed to continue. Mr. Speaker, one of the glaring deficiencies, with due respect to the commentators, and I have to say, as a government, we always respect our critics. We listen to what they say, and we try to see if there's merit in what they say. I regret that on this occasion I am not able to find very much that is meritorious. I am told that one commentator propounded the importance of what he called ethical hacking. And that is where somebody comes and hacks your system so that they can then tell you what was wrong with it. Now, you know, Mr. Speaker, I'd prefer if that was not called ethical anything. Because if you want to come into my house, whether it is my physical real estate or my notional real estate, you must seek my permission. You can't come into my house uninvited, but then want to propound to me the tremendous benefits of your having come and done it. Our society doesn't work so. Our society requires accountability, and you do not get a get out of jail card free or a get out of jail free card, whichever one it is, simply because you may have a noble aspiration. We don't live in that world, sir. Mr. Speaker, at every single clause of this bill, we have insisted that a certain form of language be used. So if I look at clause 4.1, it says a person who intentionally, and we can go back to the fundamentals of criminal law. It was Smith and Hogan. That's right, Smith and Hogan criminal law. We go back to the fundamentals, sir, what we call the mens rea, the intention to commit a criminal act. Because if you don't have that intention, the fundamental principle is you cannot be found guilty. You must have the mens rea, the intention to do it, or be reckless as to the consequence of doing it. So the language that we've used in our act, in our bill says, a person who intentionally or recklessly, so you must have the mental intention, you can't do that accidentally, but it goes on, sir, and without authority gains access to the whole or any part of a computer system, and it goes on, is guilty of an offense. You must do it intentionally or recklessly, but most importantly, without authority. I can't understand how the concept of trespassing to my property, if you set foot on my land, if you open my front door and come in, if you push your hand in my front pocket, all of those things are clearly trespasses. But somehow, when you, without my permission, access my computer system, that isn't a notional trespass as well. We say if you do it without authority. So you could be Jesus, Lord Almighty, with a computer screen. And I spend a lot of time in church. You know what you say? Come into my heart, Lord Jesus. Even then, you just issue an invitation. Am I wrong, Rev? Even then. Remember for St. Peter, probably a little uncomfortable. But even then, you invite. But let's also look at another clause, clause 5. Again, similar language. A person who intentionally or recklessly and without authority. Mr. Speaker, throughout this legislation, throughout this bill, we underscore the importance of authority. That is to say, you can do anything you want, provided you have my permission to do so. Now, our critics would like to have a Wild Wild West situation where you can do whatever you want without regard to my rights, without regard to my privacy, without regard to my mental well-being, without regard to anything, sir. They want to be able to do. Mr. Speaker, that is described as anarchy. and does not fit within Section 48 of the Constitution, where we pass laws for the peace, order, and good government. Mr. Speaker, there are two specific areas that our critics have mentioned, and one of them is malicious communication. And perhaps, sir, it shouldn't surprise us that that is what has captured the tremendous interest. And I promise not to read the entire thing, but this is what Clause 19 says, Mr. Speaker. A person who intentionally or recklessly uses a computer system to publish, broadcast, or transmit computer data that A, intimidates a person, B, threatens to use violence toward a person or a member of his family, or to damage the property of a person or the property of his family, is guilty of an offense and trial on conviction, and on and on. Now, Mr. Speaker, they have focused on a person who uses a computer system to publish, broadcast, or transmit computer data. And as far as they're concerned, that is where the stifling of freedom of speech is. But they have not troubled, Mr. Speaker, to look at this section as a whole. You must intentionally do it. And it must intimidate a person, threaten to use violence, and things of that sort. No, Mr. Speaker, those are clearly breaches of the criminal standard. Now, tell me why this Parliament should feel that we have discharged our duty to the public by not protecting them from this kind of thing, Mr. Speaker. Now, I know where I stand as Attorney General, I know where my colleagues stand, and I hope that right-thinking Barbadians stand with us. We have seen the kind of harm that has happened when people use computer systems in this way. There's no denying it. And equally, there's no justification for it. And all we're saying, if you want to use your computer system to intimidate people, to use violence, to threaten to use violence, or to threaten to damage their property, we are going to hold you accountable. It goes on, sir. A person who intentionally or recklessly uses a computer system to publish, broadcast, or transmit data that includes private sexual photographs and videos without the consent of the person who appears in them. That's what it says, sir. If you want to send pictures to somebody who wants to receive them, that's up to you. But the person who is depicted in them must obviously have a say. Because you want to maintain your freedom of speech to be able to publish that which you will, without regard for the right to privacy of the individual whose sensitive material you have. So again, sir, I come back to the Constitution. We are required to effect a balancing act between your freedom to do as you please, while at the same time protecting individuals who are not ordinarily able to protect themselves from this kind of harm. But this clause goes on, sir, because it says that you must do it with the intent to humiliate, harass, or cause substantial emotional distress to that person. Now, Mr. Speaker, I doubt that there is a human being in this chamber, I doubt, that has not had to talk with their constituent, to talk them through the savagery that has happened to them or their family because somebody sent out nude pictures of them. Because somebody sent out pictures of intimacy, videos of intimacy in that regard. I know I've had to deal with it. I'm sure everybody here has had the occasion to try to counsel people. And the one thing they ask you, can you not do something about it? That's why they come to us, you know. Because we've been elected. But why can you not do something about it? Now, let me say, sir, I understand that there's a bit of a red herring being put out there that these are matters for the civil law. And if somebody does this to you, you should sue them. Mr. Speaker, why would that be a matter for civil law? But if somebody come and chop you with a big rock, that is not also a matter for the civil law. If somebody hit you with a stick, the first thing you're doing is calling the police. Because your person has been invaded. Is it so far-fetched to think that when you publish that kind of material about an individual, that individual's person has also been invaded, not by a physical blow, but Mr. Speaker, I would guarantee you that a teenage boy or girl will recover from that stick lash a hell of a lot sooner than the pornographic material that is forever floating about in cyberspace. That they can't remove. Things that they might have done when in the innocence of youth, but will haunt them forever. I'm sure that in this chamber, a lot of us have done things, not of that kind, of course, but a lot of us have done things that, cause us a little bit of discomfort. Mr. Speaker, we went to the same institution, and there was a little shop in the back. Behind the school wall.
Leinster Road.
Leinster Road.
Leinster Road.
And during the school day, we would put together some money and visit. And we would imbibe a beverage. And we felt like we were men. And of course, we would save some money to buy mints, because when you get back to school, you walk on see. We've all done things. But Mr. Speaker, those things don't last you for the rest of your life as a Damocles sword hanging over your head, forever threatening your career. The Honourable Minister spoke very ably on the matter and pointed out irrefutably that these kinds of things have led to individuals harming themselves, sometimes the ultimate harm, committing suicide. So how that become now a civil matter? Is it that we should stand by and say, just go to the courts, bring an action in the court? No, sir. Because this kind of harm, I would venture to suggest, is perhaps more permanently debilitating than the many assaults that find their way into the courtrooms. What is key in this legislation, sir, is that we have not criminalized the mere publishing of the information. Because if we criminalize the mere publishing of the information, then for sure we would run afoul of protecting the individual's freedom of speech. We, sir, are prohibiting the transmission of that kind of material, A, without the consent of the person, and B, that it would have been published with the intent to humiliate, harass, or cause substantial emotional distress to that person. Similar language to that which obtained in the 2005 legislation, sir. But we knew that we needed to go further. Mr. Speaker, this particular clause also goes on that a person who intentionally uses a computer system to disseminate any image or words, not caring whether they are true or false, and causes or is likely to cause or subject a person to ridicule, contempt, or embarrassment, is also liable. Mr. Speaker, this legislation, when passed, will require individuals to be accountable for what they do. That's all. Accountable for what they do. I've heard criticisms that we've used vague language. We've used language like annoyance, inconvenience, danger, obstruction, embarrassment. Same language as we had in the legislation that was passed in 2005. No different. No different. But let me say this, Mr. Speaker. I do not know of any parliament that defines every single word of this kind in legislation. Doesn't happen. And any court, when called upon to adjudicate on these matters, will use what a judge will understand to be the plain meaning of the word. Our judges adjudicate daily on such things as grievous bodily harm. Ask somebody to give you a precise definition of what grievous bodily harm is. You could try, but the law has settled on the use of the term grievous because it conveys a particular set of information, and, sir, an accused person is even better protected because the burden of proof is not on him or her, the burden of proof is on the state. So that the state, if it wishes to prosecute individual X or individual Y, the state has the burden of proving every element of the offense. So the state has to prove that it humiliated, harassed, that it was obscene, vulgar, profane. The state has a responsibility to prove that there was annoyance, inconvenience, danger, or obstruction. Mr. Speaker, you well know as one of the finest criminal lawyers in Barbados, that an accused person can go into court and sit down and say nothing. You cannot compel him to say a word. He doesn't have to contradict you about anything. The burden of proving these things is on the state. So it is not for an individual citizen who publishes something to then be told, well, prove that it wasn't obscene, prove that it wasn't harassment, prove that there wasn't humiliation. That burden, sir, rests on the state and is the highest burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. So there are a number of safeguards that are built in. We've built in the words, you must do it intentionally or recklessly. We've built in the term that you must do it without authority. We've built in the terms that you must do it intending certain consequences, annoyance, harassment, and so on. And then on top of that, sir, the state has the obligation to prove that the elements of the offense are committed. Mr. Speaker, we've done a lot of work in getting this legislation here. And I accept that for many people, their initial reaction is going to be, why? I accept that people will look to see if there's a soft and nasty underbelly to what we're doing. I read with some interest this morning the editorial in one of our daily newspapers. And the editorial asked the question, well, how we intend to police social media. How do we intend to police social media? You know, Mr. Speaker, the notion of policing social media, yes, it's a fairly monstrous prospect, but this is really going to be self-policing to some extent. Because in every criminal case, there's always going to be a complainant, sir. A complainant. That is key. Somebody has to raise the concern. Somebody has to say, I have been wronged, and seek recourse. So while it's nice to ask the question of how do we intend to police the TikTok and so on, Mr. Speaker, nobody in the Barbados Police Service is going to sit down trying to look at TikTok or Facebook or any of the other media 24/7 to look to see if an offense is committed. That's not policing. We don't need to police any of those things. We don't need to police WhatsApp. This is not about policing WhatsApp or TikTok. WhatsApp and TikTok and Facebook, those are the media Those are the hose pipes, the car trunks, the refrigerator. Those are the things that facilitate the wrongdoing. That's what they are. TikTok in itself is not harmful. But using TikTok or using Facebook or using WhatsApp. So the question of us policing those things is a red herring. We're not policing those. We don't have to police those. Individuals who are affected will come forward, I expect, and say, I have been wronged. I am asking that you investigate this. And if there's sufficient evidence found, just like with every other kind of offense in Barbados, a prosecution can be offered. So just because this is called cybercrime, it does not mean that this is something that is mysterious. This is not some smoky, smoke and mirrors thing. Individuals know when they've been wronged. I've had many calls from individuals who say, so-and-so published this about me on social media. Sometimes, if it's defamatory, I say, we'll go after them. Other times, it would call for a criminal remedy, but there are challenges. So to put this thing about us policing TikTok and so on is just a red herring. We're not policing any of that. We're not required to do any of that. What we're requiring is that people be accountable for doing these things. And we know the many, many malicious instances when people have data published about them and they have no recourse. That's not the kind of world, Mr. Speaker, that we propose to live in. Mr. Speaker, there have been some commentators who have very thoughtfully and sincerely submitted to us various criticisms. They've been dealt with in large measure by the Minister of Industry and Industry, Science and Technology, so I don't need to repeat them. But let me just say that when those criticisms were received, Mr. Speaker, we subjected ourselves to the greatest possible rigor. To the greatest possible rigor. And we had a discussion with the individuals from the Council of Europe who helped us through this process. And we examined every single criticism to determine whether the criticism was well-founded or not. We certainly had our views because at the end of the day, we drafted the law. But this is, I admit, a new experience for us, and therefore we went back to the Law Reform Commission, and they in turn went to the Council of Europe and said, look, these criticisms have been leveled at our bill. Please analyze them and give us your view so that we can see if they're consistent with ours. The criticisms, and I don't want to heap coals in anybody's head, but the criticisms were found not to have merit because the individuals simply did not understand the legislation as it was drafted. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the Council of Europe consultants have informed us that Barbados now has the finest legislation on cybercrime anywhere in the region. Jamaica has new legislation on cybercrime, Guyana, Trinidad, several others. They've said that we have the piece of legislation that other countries must now mirror in order to reach our standard. Now, Mr. Speaker, we are interested in becoming a party to the Treaty of Budapest. There are several advantages, several benefits that would accrue, but that is a matter that has to be taken up in another place by cabinet. So I'm not going to prejudge. I'm not going to prejudge what will or will not happen there. But whether we become a state party to the Council of Europe, to the Budapest Convention or not, whether we take that step or not, Mr. Speaker, we have taken a step to preserve the peace, order, and good government of Barbados. And I'm asking those individuals, instead of just glibly saying we did this or we did that, look at the law, look at the statute, look at the clauses of the bill, Read it in its entirety. Try to parse it, sir. Dissect it and ask ourselves, what does this word mean? What does it mean when we say you must, if you do it without authority? What's the impact of that? What if we say that you must have the intention to cause harm? What is the effect of that? And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that when the commentators examine the bill, read the clauses, follow the words, they will see that the kinds of fears and so on that they have tried to broadcast to the Barbadian public are more illusory than real. This, sir, is not rocket science. This is building on a foundation that we established in 2005, but which we found not to be able to deal with the current situation today. We've put higher fines in place because we recognize, you know, Mr. Speaker, there was a voice note going around. And in the voice note, a person who was a very, very loud commentator on COVID matters was heard to be berating an individual who was doing her job as a public servant, berating her in the most vicious of terms. That individual threatened the lady's job. He knows where she works. He is going to make sure that she loses her job. It was shameful. My understanding is that the lady was reduced to tears. And Mr. Speaker, we had to look at the legislation to see if there was some way under the 2005 Act that we could perhaps capture the conduct of this individual. Now, Mr. Speaker, it suits some people to hide behind the curtain and say what should be allowed and what should not be allowed. It suits them because, you know, they can say what they like, they're not accountable to anybody. But the moment something happens to one of their family members, they want to know what we're doing about it. Why is this being allowed to happen? The very thing that they want to be able to do, let somebody do it to them. And all hell will break loose because the shoe is now on the other foot. Mr. Speaker, this is about protecting individuals in our society who simply have no capacity to represent themselves in this way. It isn't rocket science, sir. And the same way that we do it in other spheres of Barbadian life, we have determined that it is important to do it here. We have legislation that deals with assaults. We have legislation that deals with trespass. We have legislation that deals with all kinds of things, all kinds of interferences with human activity. This is not a new frontier. We already have legislation that deals with it. What we are doing, sir, is modernizing this legislation. Because for the first time, sir, we are now dealing with cyberbullying. For the first time in our system of laws, we're going to be dealing with things like grooming. We're looking at all of the pernicious sides of this particular box, the sides where people are using social media and their phones and so on to either torment people, to groom them into improper conduct. So we're talking about those things. And we're saying that those things are wrong. Our society must stand for something. What we cannot stand for is a state of anarchy where people say and do what they like. That's not what we stand for. The rights of citizens, Mr. Speaker, are not being infringed by this bill. You will be caught by this bill if you run afoul of its clauses. So if the conduct that you propose to do that you've gotten away with for so long, if that conduct, well, if you want to persist with that conduct, then you'll be caught. You'll be caught. You'll be caught by acting without authority. You'll be caught by acting intentionally. You'll be caught by having an animus to cause people harm. If those things don't apply to you, then there's no issue. There's absolutely no issue, Mr. Speaker. This bill was well thought out. We had a tremendous amount of consultation. I'm pleased to say I was able to participate in a 3-day seminar where all of the stakeholders were brought in. We brought in the prosecutors, we brought in the judges, we brought in the magistracy, we even brought in some of the same critics to look at the bill, dissect it, see how it could be improved, how we can better make it work. And now we have a result that works for Barbados. This is what a modern Barbados needs. By passing this law, we are joining well over 100 other countries by saying to the anarchists among us, this far and no further. As a country, we stand for something. You have the right to say what you want, do what you want, but it has to be weighed in the scale of the rights of the other individuals. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, that this bill has generated the feelings that this government is up to something sinister to protect itself. Not the case. We're not trying to protect itself. And you know, Mr. Speaker, I wish that one of those people said to me, because I would ask them, how? How is it that this bill is looking to protect us as a political class? There's nothing in this bill that says that you could stop anybody from saying that the member for Christchurch South is an idiot. Mr. Speaker, I made the mistake of Googling my name one time. If you haven't done it, don't do it. I beg you. This was in the early days. In my early days as a politician. So this was in the early 2000s. I Googled my name, sir, and what should come up but a very nice picture of a handsome Dale Marshall with something scrawled in red across the picture. It was like in a picture frame. I'll never forget these words, sir. I are an idiot. I couldn't believe it. I are an idiot, that's what it said. Whoever posted it, that's what they thought about Dale Marshall. And I'm sure he or she still thinks that way. I don't think I could have done anything to convince them to change their mind. In fact, they probably have some company now. But Mr. Speaker, we get into politics understanding that we are low-hanging fruit for critics. We are fodder for people who want to abuse everybody, and the politicians get abused first. There is nothing in this bill, nothing, sir, that will cause an individual to have pause about saying something negative about any of us in government. However, you will cross the line if you do something, if you publish something about any citizen. We have near 300,000 people in Barbados. And you think we can pass a bill called the Cybercrime Act to protect 30? 300,000 people, and you really want to allege that we are looking to protect, that is 1/3,000th? I'm not even sure. That's not what this is about. This is not about us. Whatever you say about us, feel free to continue to say it. Continue to say it. There are some who argue that there's nothing called bad publicity. This is about you, the Barbadian. This is about your daughters and your sons. This is about stopping you from having to wake up one day and seeing abusive stuff about your child, about your wife on social media. This is about protecting them. We in here can protect ourselves, and I bet you could not find a more set of thick-skinned people. There's nobody in politics who is thin-skinned. We've taken that, and we will continue to take it, and we'll take more. But this is about protecting those who are not able, Mr. Speaker, to protect themselves. And I'll end there. This is a proud moment, I believe, for Barbados. Nobody has alleged that the 2005 Act was about stifling expression. Nobody alleged any of those things. But we've brought something that is new and more comprehensive, and they're making those allegations now. Unfounded, Mr. Speaker. I'm not going to bore the chamber by going through every piece of the statute. I am more than satisfied with its content. There's absolutely no political or executive overreach here. The rights of individuals remain protected. And I remind you that in every case, Mr. Speaker, the state has the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt before a person can find themselves convicted under this law. Mr. Speaker, thank you for your accommodation.
Honourable Member for St. James North.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to give my support to this bill and to support my colleagues who have previously spoken in this debate. This bill is extremely necessary, as has been told to this chamber and to Barbados through this chamber. It replaces a 19-year-old Computer Misuse Act, which, while it may have been adequate for its time 2 decades ago, is now no longer adequate because of the change in the times, the use of computer systems, the dangers and intimidation that can be carried out through computer devices, with all the good and the benefit that they have brought to our people and to this world, sir. The language which is used in this bill is universal, as has been said by previous speakers, sir. It's universal, it represents international best practice. Our government has received tremendous assistance, as you've heard from the Honourable Minister leading this debate, from the Attorney General just now, from the Council of Europe, which has formulated the only international convention on cybercrime, the Budapest Convention, which in fact came into force on the 1st of July 2004, sir, an established convention. And this government, our government, has received assistance on this. The Europeans are willing to spend millions of dollars helping countries like ours in this regard, and they've helped Trinidad to that extent financially, sir. As we just heard from the Attorney General, Trinidad and Tobago is one of the 3 CARICOM countries that have so far passed modernized cybercrime legislation, Guyana and Jamaica being the other 2. And Trinidad has been a beneficiary of vast, comparatively, sums of money from the Council of Europe to assist in this regard. In fact, Trinidad, even though they are not a signatory to the Budapest Convention, they've been invited to accede to it. As I'm not exactly sure how many countries are signatory to the Budapest Convention at this time. I know up to last year, January, there were 69, with 22 being invited to accede to the convention. While we speak, sir, the United Nations is also in the process of negotiating a cybercrime convention. Negotiations have been going on since January 2021 to try to conclude a United Nations cybercrime convention, sir. I know that Guyana and Jamaica are playing leading roles in that. They're right now meeting in New York at the UN on it. They previously had 3 meetings in Vienna since 2021, and this is the 3rd in New York. And it is hoped that that convention can be finalized, the drafting of it, by the General Assembly of this year in September in New York, so that countries can start signing on to the UN Convention as well in this area, sir. Barbados, I know, has intermittently played a part in the negotiations, but Guyana and Jamaica have played leading roles in our CARICOM on this issue. This convention, sir, the Budapest Convention, which, as I said, we are basing this bill on, is a criminal justice treaty. It provides signatory countries with criminalization of attacks against and by means of computers, sir. And I will go into the kind of examples why this is important. It also provides procedural tools to make the investigation of cybercrime and the securing of electronic evidence in relation to any crime more effective and subject to the rule of law safeguards. And the convention also provides an international policing and judicial cooperation mechanism on cybercrime and e-evidence, sir. And as the Attorney General, sir, has said, we've been fortunate to have an Attorney General who understands this process, because he was an expert on electronic transactions legislation, as he said, sir, helping to formulate it. I know when he was a senator, before he got into, he was an elected MP, he did a lot of work on this. So this is the kind of background that presents to this Parliament, sir, as we go about doing our sworn duty to the people of Barbados in protecting and serving our constituents, sir. A lot has been said about how we are seeking to stifle freedom of speech, sir. You know, sir, I would have studied, constitutional law now 44 years ago, sir. Our Constitution, basic law, sir, forthright law, our main piece of legislation, sir. In Section 20, Fundamental Human Rights section says, speech, yes, no person shall be hindered in the enjoyment of his freedom of expression. Not freedom of speech, sir. In other words, sir, this isn't the United States of America, where they have, as they claim, sir, and as the courts have interpreted, a constitutional right to freedom of speech, sir, freedom of expression. Different, sir. That's what our Constitution says in Section 21. But however, subsection 2, sir, immediately after provides that such freedom of expression is subject to laws which are reasonably required for the purpose of protecting the reputations, rights, and freedoms of other persons, or the private lives of persons concerned in legal proceedings, sir. In other words, our Constitution tells you, yes, you have the right to express your opinion on matters, sir, but you don't have the right to destroy people's reputations, to infringe on their privacy, to infringe on their basic human rights and freedoms, to say things about them which you cannot prove to be correct, and to say things which you have no regard whether they're true or not. You're reckless, and you say it intentionally, sir. Our Constitution does not give you that right. So these know-it-alls, sir, that walking about Barbados on calling programs and social media, including the opposition, sir. Well, not opposition in this Parliament, because since 2013, for the last 11 years, they have not won a seat in this country, sir. So not opposition in this Parliament, sir, but opposition as we understand the term, sir, who are walking about saying we're breaching people's freedom of speech, sir. There's also the corollary that you do not have the freedom to destroy people's lives and reputations, and that has to be subject to legal proceedings and to criminal justice in this country, sir. We have had, sir, the basis of our common law, our law, sir, arising, of course, out of the common law of England until, and even now to some extent, sir, but certainly up to independence. We took our laws from the United Kingdom and Derry and Peak, sir, which every lawyer, every law student is taught in contract and tort, sir. 1889 House of Laws case, which speaks about fraudulent misrepresentation within contract and tort, sir, and deceit, and making statements which are false and making them recklessly or carelessly as to the truth of the statement, sir, and that is penalized. So this is nothing new, sir, this concept that we are speaking about and which is continued in this bill which is before this Parliament today. And as previous honourable members have said in this debate, sir, a lot of the concepts and the language which we are debating in this bill has been brought over from the Computer Misuse Act. It is just, there was no sound and fury when that act was passed in 2005, but we accept, sir, that people, because of social media, are now a bit more vigilant. Some, I understand, sir, are just there to create mischief, sir, politically. But some may be genuinely not knowledgeable of that fact. May not have taken time, as I suspect, to read either the Computer Misuse Act or to read this bill before they pontificate on being experts on what this bill is seeking to do and what liberties it is seeking to take away from the people of Barbados, sir. The penalties in the Computer Misuse Act were maybe adequate then, but are certainly inadequate now. The highest penalty, I think, in that act, sir, was about £50,000. Sorry, $50,000 or 5 years imprisonment or both. Many of the provisions in that act only had a penalty of $10,000 or I think 2 years in prison, sir. This act, sir, this bill brings in new concepts, as we have heard, sir. Child grooming, fine of $100,000 or 10 years imprisonment. We must protect our children, sir. If this Parliament fails to protect minors, people under 18 years old, sir, right, honestly, this Parliament could as well go home, wrap up, sir, call that Wally. We wasting time here every Tuesday. You have to protect the children of this country, sir, along with the senior citizens. They're the most vulnerable in this country. Child grooming, sir, where people on the net then wooing minor children, and let's face it, men mainly wooing young girls, 13, 14 years old, telling them how sweet they look, X, Y, Z, I want to meet you this place, sir. Well, no reasonable person, for political purposes or otherwise, can say that criminalizing such behavior is unreasonable and not the duty of any Parliament, sir. Online child sexual abuse, sir, new offense under this act, sir, wasn't present in the Computer Misuse Act. In other words, sir, abusing, again, minor children sexually through the internet, sir. Fine of $100,000, 10 years imprisonment when this act is proclaimed, or if you're found guilty. Now, tell me, sir, who reasonable person whose daughter being sexually abused online going to disagree with that, sir? And if you could find any reasonable person who going to say that should not be a criminal offense, sir, I would say, well, look, let me done with politics. Go and put my 2 feet up and cool out, or just practice my law, because I would figure my time in politics is no use, sir. Commendable. Cyberbullying, $70,000 fine, 7 years imprisonment, Section 20, sir. New offense in our framework, legislative framework, sir. And honourable members have spoken to that, sir. I heard on one of the radio stations about we should be bringing proof that this is a problem in Barbados. I don't understand it, sir. I know that 30 people in here are connected to their constituency and their constituents, and know that there are people in our respective constituencies who have been victims of cyberbullying. And let's give examples, sir. Somebody tells you you are homosexual and got that on the media, social media, you do this, you do that, sir. And you're young, sir, and you are emotionally fragile. Let me use that phrase. It must get to you, sir. They're not, some of these young people who then go and do harm to themselves are not hardback people like us in here. So as the Honourable Attorney General said, I mean, I don't know that a week doesn't pass that I get cussed. Somebody cussed me, sir, don't mind. I might get very high percentage of votes, or percentage of votes, yes, last 2 elections. There's some people out there that cuss you, sir. Well, that is part of the territory. You can't please everybody. You shouldn't attempt to please everybody because you can't. So we harden, sir. I've been a victim, sir, of a person who, before the law courts now, who said all kind of things about me on social media, went all around the world, sir, because I was doing my sworn duty as a minister of Home Affairs in protecting Barbados from, and sir, suffered tremendously. Still, people make jokes about it. So even some of my colleagues died the truth. The man vowed that he gonna make me lose my cabinet pick, sir. All kind of things, sir. But I still alive. I still alive here today. God willing, healthy, sir. And still representing people, sir. So, I didn't sue him. Maybe should have. Computer Misuse Act, yes. Could have gone to court. $10,000, sir. Where's $10,000 fine anyway, sir? Decided not to sue him. But this is what we as members of Parliament subject ourselves to, sir. The truth of the matter, sir, if somebody says something that I corrupt now in my political career, my legal profession, anything else, they would be given an opportunity to prove it in court. That is a different matter altogether, no. But what are you going to do? But not everybody is like that, sir. We have subjected ourselves to this kind of situation. You heard the Honourable Attorney General speak of an instance with him, sir. And in most cases, we let it go by. If, as I said, if the talk about you being corrupt, that is a different thing. But people getting on, sir, like if the Right Excellent Errol Barrow and the Right Honourable Tom Adams, well, the two of them, sir, two political giants within our context in Barbados, sir, used to sue people regularly. We don't sue people now like them. Regular, right? Those two prime ministers used to have people in court. You say that about me, I give you the opportunity to prove it. I used to get money too for proving it, for putting people's inability to prove what they said. The mouth, they had to pay for the mouth. We know of situations, sir, where two outstanding members of Parliament of this country, one who went on to be Prime Minister, one who went on to be Attorney General, sir, got what were then big defamation judgments, sir, 35,000 and 30,000 respectively, and caused the Speaker of the House to have to resign for bankruptcy, sir. So this thing about how we bring in this bill to protect ourselves is one of the biggest piece of laughter, sir, that I have encountered quite honestly for this decade, sir. We bring in this bill to protect our people who can't afford to go to a lawyer, spend $10,000, $20,000 or whatever to pay a lawyer now to put somebody in civil court for saying that they are homosexual or something when there's no such proof. So, because that is effectively what the critics are saying, that these clauses should not be subjected to criminal justice system, that they should be civil. But who can pay a lawyer $10,000, $20,000 to defend their reputation, sir? And reputation is key. You can't measure that. We deal, of course, Your Honor, with personal injury matters, grievous bodily harm, and your leg injured, and personal injury settlement, and you try your best to give money. But how do you compensate for no harm to your reputation, sir? When a female wakes up in the morning and sees plastered on social media nude pictures of herself sent by a previous boyfriend, sir, with whom she has now broken up. And therefore, when she reaches work that morning at a hotel, she is called in by the human resource manager and says, well, look, we can't have you working at our hotel anymore. Because look at what I have about you on social media. Look at this. And your job lost. Your reputation gone. Everybody in the district laughing at you. You walk down Bridgetown, oh Lord, but look, that daily woman who all her fronts on social media yesterday. And you want to tell me that a reasonable Barbadian gonna tell this parliament, sir, that should not be subjected to the criminal justice system? You have destroyed an individual. If it was their wife or their daughter, would they have that same opinion, sir? No. I warn, as I always do, sir, my constituents, my young female constituents, do not send anything to any man like that. Don't let no man, how much you feel you love him or he loves you today, take any video pictures of you that way. Don't. Because guys, today you don't know what tomorrow gonna bring. Don't do it. And I want to use this forum, sir, this forum in the land, to again caution young people against that. It can have tremendous adversarial effects on you for the rest of your life. You could be destroyed by it. Don't love yourself first. Love yourself before you love any man. That is the key, because you don't know what's going to happen. And too often that happens. There'll be cases of this. Constituents who have lost jobs because of that same example that I have talked about, sir. Identity theft addressed in this bill, sir. I mean, many of us in these chambers, sir, have had our social media hacked, sir. People call me regularly, not so much now, but especially when I was a minister, Eddie, this thing here come to me, asking me to send you $10,000. But Eddie, that. One constituent of mine, sir, actually sent an individual $3,000 saying that she sent it to me. And even though I told her it was not me, did not believe that it was not me. Convinced it was me, sir. I told her, you really believe that your MP, would ask you for $3,000, a person who helping you financially when Christmas come, when summer come with school uniforms, etc. Why are you going to be asking you for $3,000? Why you couldn't pick up the phone if you had doubts and say, Mr. Hinkson, you asking me for this? Sent the individual $3,000. Gone through the others, $3,000 dead. Another constituent about to send $10,000. In fact, to mortgage his vehicle. He had the $10,000 put down. To mortgage his vehicle for $10,000 to send $5,000 US to somebody. Before he went to the credit union or wherever to get the loan, called me. Mama, Miss Hinkson, sending you this $5,000 US because, of course, enticements that you can get much more. I said, you mad? You mad? At least I'm glad you called me before. That is the kind of action that we hear bringing this legislation to seek to curb, to deter, and to penalize, sir. Very, very prevalent. That is what's going on in this country. Not only in this country, all over. Because I see the Trinidad Minister of Finance a few days ago complained that his social media got hacked too. His identity, sir. Serious business. Cyber terrorism, which Section 25 speaks on, which is a 25-year penalty, sir. That was in previous legislation. Anti-terrorism legislation, sir, that we have. But other than that, some of these are new pieces. Child pornography, sir. That was in the Computer Misuse Act. But this Act bill strengthens that provision and the penalties against it. Under the Computer Misuse Act, the penalty is $50,000 or 5 years in prison. Under this bill says $100,000, 10 years in prison. And wisely so, sir, because you can't be now sending out images, pornography of children, sir, and you feeling smart and saying that is your right to free speech. No, I fundamentally disagree with that, sir. This act abolishes criminal libel, sir, which is a good thing, right? Honestly, that's obsolete now. As I said, the Budapest Convention, the question was asked on a talk show program yesterday as to why, if we are relying so much on the Budapest Convention, why we haven't signed on to it, sir. As I understand it, when we pass this bill, when this bill is proclaimed, we would have the opportunity to join the Budapest Convention. As the Honourable Attorney General said, that will be up to the Cabinet of Barbados, sir. As I said, there will also be the opportunity, hopefully soon, to join the United Nations Convention on cybercrime. So that's why we haven't joined, because remember, it's a European initiated convention, and the Europeans only accept other signatory states who have shown a commitment by passing this type of legislation to join on to that convention, so which obviously aims to prevent and detect and deter crimes committed via the internet and other computer systems. This legislation essentially as well, sir, covers defamation, which is not spoken or written in traditional form, but is circulated by the computer. And the Law Reform Commission, as has been mentioned by previous honourable members, has been instrumental in us being here today. So the Law Reform Commission, headed by Sir David Simmons, a vastly outstanding previous member of this House, an Attorney General, Sir, former Chief Justice as well, would have been prime in this, Sir. Sir David would have chaired, I believe, some of the stakeholder meetings which the Honourable Attorney General just mentioned, which were held in mid-September last year between law enforcement and judiciary and stakeholders, sir. Cyber security experts, sir, and I believe many were invited. Some didn't come, sir, prefer to speak now in criticism of the bill. I know, for example, one, sir, and I'm going to mention him honorably, sir, Stephen Williams, who I have a lot of respect for in this area. I'm carrying on a parent education and personal development program right now, sir, and he's going to present at a session on cybercrime security and your child. I know he was present at it, sir, and was on a committee, and give credit to the Law Reform Commission on this, sir, and I want to take the opportunity, sir, to give sympathy to the family of the Honourable late Justice of Appeal Jeff Cumberbatch, who is being buried on Thursday, sir, who was a member of the Law Reform Commission as well, sir, and for the work he would have done on that commission and to get us here today in this. Clearly, sir, what will be needed is training, continued training of law enforcement officials, on policemen on this issue, sir, and the judiciary as well, sir, because, you know, a few days at a training program is not going to be enough. You need continuous training on the issue. What this bill also emphasizes, sir, is that you just can't go willy-nilly and take up somebody's computer device or cell phone. Sir, you need a search warrant for, sir, basic criminal law. You need a search warrant from magistrate or judge to be able to do that. And there's that protection, in other words. So those who are speaking against this bill speak like the police could just willy-nilly go on because they don't like you, you know, take up your computer. It don't work so, sir. You know that very, very well, better than virtually all of us in here. The issue, sir, of the interpretation by the courts of sections in this bill, sir, as the Honourable Attorney General said, and the Honourable Minister for Member of Parliament for St. Michael's South Central, who presented this, it is impossible to interpret every word in every piece of legislation. This legislation interprets intimidation, says what intimidation is, sir, but it can't interpret every word: embarrassment, inconvenience, annoyance. So the law doesn't operate that way. There has to be scope for judicial interpretation based on reasonableness, sir, and in accordance with the evidence which is before the court. The court will deal with that. Parliament now can't oversee every word. And I contend, sir, that it has to be, there's a test of reasonableness in law. You know, somebody giving evidence, sir, the judicial officer is in a position to decide when they're done, whether they were humiliated reasonably or not, whether they suffered annoyance, inconvenience, whether they were threatened by what was said about them or placed about them on social media, sir. So those critics who are speaking about the vagueness of some of the words of this bill, sir, I think are quite honestly seeking to bring in issues that are not before us and to create strife and fear among people, sir. There's a lady who called me this morning on a constituency matter, not my constituent, but related to my constituency. And even though I was getting ready to come here today, so I didn't know the number, so I come up. Person rang 3 times, and the 3rd time I answered. We got into a discussion on this issue in my constituency as she perceived it, but then I told her I have to come to Parliament. I gotta go. Her response, oh man, this cybercrime bill you're all talking about, you know, to stop people free speech on social media, I don't like. I told her, give me an example of where we curtailing people's free speech, though. And she proceeds to tell me, and I told her I'm going to mention it, about how if she goes into school and takes a photo now of a bathroom that breaking down and put it on social media, that can be a criminal offense. I told her, absolutely not. Where you get that from? If you include a child in it, well, that is a different thing. Or if you proceed now to cuss the head teacher or the ministry officials or the minister and say the minister is this or that because the school won't fix the school bathroom, well, that is a different thing. But you take a picture, but that is reasonable. But where you hear now that is going to be a criminal offense, or that is what people are saying. I say, you know, there's the problem in Barbados, and this is what makes, I suppose, sometimes governing so difficult, because a lot of foolishness is perpetuated out there by people who don't know, for one reason or another, politically, or sometimes in just plain, they don't know, sir. And therefore, the Honourable Member for Christchurch, East, Minister of Information, quite honestly, perhaps needs to have more discussions through the departments and the agencies in the Ministry and Public Affairs and Government Information Service on these kind of pieces of legislation. The Honourable Minister for Innovation went on brass tacks yesterday, two and a half hours. So she did her part in terms of public information, sir. More of us probably need to do that within our constituencies, branch meetings, talk about these pieces of legislation to counter a lot of the ignorance, quote unquote, that is being fostered out there, which people believe. That is the reality of Barbados. Something that isn't true, saying that false, people up running with it. The clicking, sir, on the cell phone, forwarded, sir. It forwarded now, and then when you look, somebody else sent it to you in half hour, and by then it forwarded many times. People don't know whether it's true or not. They don't care whether it's true or not. They're reckless as to whether it's true or not. But it's spicy, it's malicious, and they're forwarding it, and they're creating a lot of havoc, destroying people's lives. Many a time I tell people in chats that when I see them forward things that I know are false, but why you send this? This is not true. You should not be sending this out. You need to delete it. But this is the Barbados that we live in. And the people will tell you, but you know, I just forwarded it, but I ain't started. It gets sent to me and I send it out. I say, but you as guilty as the person who originated it. You have aided and abetted in sending foolishness out that isn't true, that affecting people's livelihood, the way of life. You know, think about it. It is no excuse that you didn't originate it or you didn't write it in the first place. And let's just sit back a bit and take heed as to what you are doing in spreading falsehoods that you intentionally, because you have to have the mens rea, guilty mind, Are you reckless as to whether, don't care whether it's true or not? So these have to be criminalized because they are very, very serious. Within the context of the legislation too, sir, the experts advise that passwords should be strengthened to avoid your computer systems being hacked, sir. And that is very good advice, that you can't have weak passwords that people can hack into and can find out. Strengthen your passwords. We have to do our best to prevent this kind of acts that can cost billions of dollars to countries. Costa Rica, for example, was forced to declare a state of emergency a few years ago following a ransomware cyber attack that it impaired its digital infrastructure for months. Billions of dollars cybercrime costs states globally on an annual basis. It is unfair. We here fighting to protect the social fabric of our country. And then you got to deal with people with cyber attacks too. So this legislation correctly, sir, speaks towards penalizing, I think it's $100,000, 10 years as well. Interfering with computer systems which affect government services, telecommunications, emergency services, electricity generators, law enforcement or intelligence, national security, national economic security, sir, has to be a heavy fine. So don't tell me, sir, that somebody who because they know about computers well can go and hack into Queen Elizabeth Hospital, let's say, sir, feel proud of it, and got Queen Elizabeth Hospital scrambling for months, medical records out, all kind of thing out. That is affecting fundamentally the national security of the country, sir. And critics of this bill can tell me that that should not be criminalized by $100,000 and 10 years in jail, sir. So this is it, sir. There's no offense of strict liability. That is the other thing. People getting on now like if, there's strict liability. In other words, no mens rea has to be proved, no guilty mind, sir. State has to prove beyond reasonable doubt. That is the standard. Civil procedure, as we know, say, just balance of reasonable probabilities. Criminal law, which this is higher standard of proof. No strict liability. Child pornography, in fact, there's a defense that if the child pornography was being used for bona fide research purposes, medical or law enforcement purposes, it will be a defense. There's also a defense in terms of Section 19.3, where defamation, sir, the defense is to defamation. Obviously, truth, if it is true, if it is comment, which used to be fair comment, sir, and of course, absolute and qualified privilege are defenses, sir. So this act protects everyone and is reasonable and has balanced the interests as best as can be, sir. I would say, as I wrap up, sir, that the issue, sir, if people are talking about freedom of information, that there should be freedom of information legislation. Sir, I, for one, sir, believe that this is something that we need to move to. We've in the past, as a party, promised it in a previous manifesto, sir. Don't believe it was in our last, but we had previously promised it, sir. And I believe nothing is wrong with that. So in the interest of transparency and accountability, we have nothing to hide, sir. Obviously, issues such as national security will be immune, though, from disclosure in a freedom of information legislation. But in other ways, we should feel confident, sir, this party that has passed prevention of corruption legislation, sir, and integrity legislation. Don't mind, of course, we're still putting the systems in place to have the integrity legislation proclaimed, sir. We should be moving towards, as well, freedom of information legislation, sir. But in terms of what this bill provides, sir, and which I have every expectation, of course, will become the law of the land, sir. It is reasonable, and I defend, sir, the probity and the efficacy of this bill, sir. And like all the previous honourable members, sir, say categorically that no freedom of expression within the context of the law, as it does not affect the rights and reputations and privacy of individuals, is being infringed here. We accept that there's no perfect piece of legislation, sir. There's never been. So therefore, those who nitpick and say, well, we don't have an I here, a T here cross, or a full stop here, or comma, sir. You know, we don't have time for that, quite honestly. Because there's no perfection in law, and that is why you pass law and you amend it or you abolish it. That is why we abolishing now the Computer Misuse Act of 19 years vintage. And that's why, sir, there's a mutual assistance provision in this, strengthened under this, because you need assistance. We can't do it alone. So therefore, other countries, and you join in with the Council of Europe, and you get technical assistance from other countries, and that's why there's also the provision in this bill, repeated from the Computer Misuse Act, that an act or omission committed by a Bajan outside of Barbados, outside the territory of Barbados, also comes within the ambit of this legislation, sir. So in other words, if you up in America, sir, once, of course, it is also a crime in the country in which the act originated. So you up in America or England, and you play that you sending down intimidatory material, obscene material, to which affecting Barbadians here, that comes within the ambit of this legislation, and correctly so, sir. So, sir, I thank you, sir, for your indulgence of me, and I support this bill wholeheartedly. I'm obliged.
Honourable for Christchurch East Central.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker. I listened very carefully to the Honourable Minister who introduced this bill, the member for St. Michael South Central. And I must say, sir, a very thorough job was done, in my view, in terms of explaining what is the purpose of this bill. And as I listen to colleagues, sir, make their presentations, I equally unsure as to what is it that is generating this type of discussion, sir, whether in social media, sir, or in the regular space. Because once one reads the bill, and sir, I'm not a lawyer, but I still can read a little English from time to time, sir, and I know that with matters of interpretation, we can look at the same thing from a different angle, sir, and see something slightly different, which is not necessarily an issue, but that's where you get between in terms of the cut and thrust in relation to these matters. But I am confident, sir, that my colleagues having covered things from the social media side, I think, in a very comprehensive way, so I want to come back to some real bread and butter issues, sir, which I think is important to understand in relation to this bill. Sir, in September or October, sir, of last year, late September, early October, I received a call from one of my constituents, sir. In a frenzy, as you might imagine. Because in his business, sir, he had hired someone to look after the accounts within his business. And within short order, sir, that person had used the access that they had, sir, to go online, sir, and to withdraw without, sir, authority, monies from that business, leaving that business, sir, teetering, so to speak, sir, because having made commitments to clients, sir, that you needed to fulfill, as you would appreciate, sir, suddenly, sir, faced with all your working capital, sir, gone because someone decided, sir, to use the access that they had in a way, sir, that was not intended. And, sir, if this act was, and mind you, sir, notwithstanding the fact that there's the Computer Misuse Act already in place to cover that, this act, sir, would certainly bring greater teeth, if you like, sir, to that kind of activity. Because, sir, the reason that he called me isn't because I'm a cybersecurity expert or anything of that nature, sir. He called me because, sir, in order for him to be able to continue to supply the goods and services that the clients had put down the monies for, on the one hand, and two, sir, to make sure that the rest of the workers, sir, can be paid, sir, because there's nothing like when you put in a full day's work, sir, and then when you turn up at payday, and then the money there, sir, nobody want to hear, sir, that the money gone, sir. But he called me because obviously there were some refunds that were owed from the Revenue Authority as the police were investigating and doing this, all the things, sir, to make sure that they can see where the monies had gone. And by that time, sir, a shopping spree had already ensued in relation to the money, because all the data there is there, sir, for all to see. So I spoke to the Revenue Commissioner, sir, to make sure that the refunds can be released earlier, simply because, sir, a business employing Barbadians, sir, was compromised by somebody inside. So I know a lot of us have been focused on the external access in relation to cybercrime. I want to say to the public, it is not only crime when it happens outside of the institution, sir. It's equally, sir, crime when it happens inside of an institution. And that is perhaps, sir, the most sinister aspect of this, because as you know, sir, fraud is fraud is fraud is fraud. And it happens every day. And the government of Barbados has put a very clear agenda on the table, sir, that we want to digitize all of our systems. We've encouraged the private sector, sir, to invest in digitizing. We've put the mandate to the financial institutions, sir, to modernize their payment systems, sir. And we all spend a lot of money, sir, trying to protect from threats external to the organization. But we must bear in mind, sir, that inside our organizations, equally, sir, equally poses a threat to all of us. And therefore, this has to be a lesson for all Barbadians. Because if you, sir, was a client of that business, you ain't gonna believe, sir, that somebody inside the organization just take up your money and gone for a shopping spree in Miami, sir. All the evidence is there. Because you hired me, sir, to deliver a job for you. You ain't interested in none of that, sir. You want to know when your good or your service will be delivered to you. Equally, sir, if you're my employee, I can't come to you and say, well, so-and-so carry the money, so hold on. I can try and see if I could do it. Even though you may understand, sir, even though you may understand, you can't go and tell, sir, the Water Authority or the Light and Power, sir, or whoever, that you're going to pay them later because somebody carried the money from your business, sir. These are serious issues that this government is confronting. I'm trying to put the systems in place, sir, that when these things occur, that we have not just the legislation, but the systems in place to be able to follow up and to bring recovery. And this is fundamentally important, sir, because I note, sir, with interest, I saw that, and I know the Honourable Member for St. Michael's South Central would be on top of these things. I note with interest that there is to be some type of webinar or something tomorrow evening, sir, in relation to some town hall, in relation to this bill, sir. This bill. And I ask myself, sir, when you understand that this is such an important element in relation to the transformation of Barbados, sir, as we set about the recovery and the economic, and the program, sir, and emphasize that this type of infrastructure and the protection of not just government assets, but private sector assets, sir, as part of the growth strategy, sir, this government under the Honourable Minister of Education in relation to rolling out the cybersecurity jobs and the like, sir, this is a critical pillar, sir, for an area of growth for all kinds of people, young people, middle-aged people, sir, to be able to get into. Those are the kinds of opportunities that this government is doing. But I note, sir, that when I saw a list of a shadow cabinet, sir, a shadow cabinet, I saw no reference, sir, to anything to do with innovation, science, technology, or anything, sir. But I see people posing on a picture saying that they're a shadow cabinet. I don't know which cabinet, sir, which shadow it is that they're chasing. But if you do not have as part of your critical thought process in this 21st century, sir, not when Mr. Barrow, sir, was around or before that, sir, in this 21st century, and you do not have identified someone who will take the responsibility for understanding the issues, sir, in this area. I don't know how you want to present yourself to whoever, sir, to say that you are an authority or you have thought through from a policy perspective in relation to this matter. But that is subject for another matter because, as you know, sir, people trying to figure out who get left out and why they get left out and all of that. I leave that to them. But I am saying to the public of Barbados, this is what is more important. It ain't just at the left out. The portfolio of the member for St. Michael, South Central, sir. The left out transportation, sir. They identify a single boy, sir, to talk about energy issues, sir. One of the critical things, sir, that is attending not just this government, but globally, sir. They ain't got a boy to talk about climate change or the most important thing facing the planet, sir. But they want to come and do a webinar on this bill, sir. Let them do the webinar on this bill because that is their right to do. But I'm saying to Barbados, how do you present a set of people to the country and some of the most critical things confronting this country, sir? There's nobody taking responsibility for it. So you know what I tell you, sir? Immediately, if they were to the government tomorrow, sir, not a road won't fix in this country, sir, because nobody will take responsibility for that. As far as energy, it'll be every man jack for himself. This government has been charting a very critical path, sir, in relation to how we roll out our energy. The Prime Minister created MIST, sir, specifically, sir, to ensure that we oversee the modernization of this economy, sir. But, sir, I laugh because there was nobody identified for finance. I said to myself, sir, but how does one present a serious set of people to the country? And these areas, sir, nobody. So let them have their webinar. I know the Honourable member from St. Michael South Central will deal with them on that. But the public must understand, sir, that these are critical issues facing this country. And therefore, I say to all and sundry, this government is here to protect your interests, sir. You, meaning the people, sir, in case somebody says that I talk to you in a personal capacity. This government is set about to protect the interests of Barbadians. And to the extent that we have true policy, sir, determined that not just through this bill, but by our very actions, because you recall, sir, when we passed the Payment Systems Act in 2021, sir, and the Fair Credit Reporting Act in 2021, sir, I told you then that the banks the banks and the credit unions, sir, had spent up until that point, sir, a significant amount of money in order to ensure that we are able to launch a real-time payment settlement, sir. And if you would oblige me for a moment, sir, I will just reminisce a little bit, sir, because when I was living in England, sir, many moons ago, and I think as we passed the the Barbados Identity Management Bill, I believe that was 2021 as well, sir. I remember, sir, in 2006-7, sir, as part of my banking experience in the United Kingdom, sir, there was a company which I subscribed to, which provided identity protection services, sir, specifically to ensure that whatever we do online, sir, was legitimate. So when people cuss and carry on and talk about the ID card this and the ID card that and the this and that and the third, this government, sir, invested in ensuring that we could have the capacity that will allow us to be able to assert ourselves as being able to identify ourselves so that people know who we are and we know who people are, sir. This government, now that was something that was in place since, as I said, 2006 or 7, sir, offered through the banking system, specifically to ensure that as you conduct business financially, that people will be certain, sir, who you are. And these are the kinds of things, sir, that coming out of what we have already started here, sir, in relation to what we're doing now with this cyber security bill, sir, to protect Barbadians. And therefore, I think, as the Honourable Member quite rightly said, I mean, so many people got the ID card now that the few people that decide that they may want to, but that's your business. But the reality is that for most of us here, it makes it easier now for us to be able to identify ourselves, and therefore the investment now through either the EBC in collaboration with MIS and the others who are engaged in the cybersecurity architecture in the country, sir, which comprises both government as well as private sector experts, sir, within the area. We are now in a position, sir, to be able to craft those responses. Well, I say response, but the systems in place, and to deal with the responses in a way, sir, that gives Barbadians confidence. And, sir, I just want to very quickly, sir, touch on a few issues, not just in relation to identity management, because the Honourable Member for St. James North identified an area that is near and dear to my heart, because ever so often, sir, on Instagram, people will send photos. My constituent will send me a photo of what appears to be me, asking for some set of money for something, saying that I want money for this and that. No, luckily, nobody. People know, sir. People know that I ain't asking nobody for the money, sir. So therefore, they always contact me and say, look, Rand, this thing get hacked, which is not necessarily a hacking anybody, that's copying. And there's a concept, sir, called phishing. Phishing, sir. Not fishing in the traditional way we talk about flying fish, sir, and that type of thing where we're talking about men from 6 mains and oysters, and not that type of fishing. It is that people send out things, sir, in the hope that you will get hooked. So they will do a nice presentation, sir, and they will send you, sir, they will do all kinds, it comes in all types of forms, by email, sir, by whatever, and as soon as you click, sir, they got you. Now, sir, I'm not sure if you are aware, but there's a new movie out, sir, called The Beekeeper. And in this movie, sir, starring the lovely Felicia Rashad, sir, and Jason Statham, sir, from the Cosby, in case people don't know, the lady from the Cosby and the transporter guy, sir. But this is the tenet of the concept of the movie, sir. The lady is in charge of the building fund at the church. They raised some money to do the building fund, I believe it is what it was. And the people sent her something online, sir. As soon as she read the thing, she clicked the thing, it says, call this number. She called the number, sir, because obviously when, as a senior citizen, she sees something wrong, she called the number because it appears legitimate, sir. She calls the number, the people on the other end, sir. As soon as she calls, puts in the code that they tell her to do, that is the authorization for them then to get into her thing. Wipe out $2 million straight, sir, like that. That's a movie. Of course, the transporter guy being the transporter guy that he is, sir. We have burned out the whole place, sir, going after the thing, but regrettably, sir, the character killed herself because having lost the money, wipe out the account, obviously how are you going to go and tell the church members that you lost the money? Now, whilst this is a movie, sir, these things happen every single day, sir. And therefore, the protection that is required, sir, from government and from private institutions investing, sir, is absolutely critical. No, sir, we are bees, sir. And therefore, to the extent that we are beekeepers is one thing, but none of us ain't got the type of beekeeper like that, sir, that can go after the hand of business for you like that. And therefore, the law which we are here to put in place to benefit our people, sir, is critical. So this fishing thing, sir, is a very important matter. And therefore, one of the things that I would love to see, and the honourable member for St. Michael South Central, I believe, will oblige, is that as we roll out, not just the awareness and all of that for this bill, I think that's important, but every public servant, sir, and pretty much every employee, no matter where you are in Barbados, there must be some system that as soon as you get work, periodically when you log in, when you put in your password, you should be able to get a few screenshots of something just to refresh you as to the threats that are out there happening. No. In the same way that we do, sir, in the financial system with money laundering, awareness, and that type of thing to make sure, because on the one hand, sir, people get training. But if you don't have an ongoing program, sir, to keep people abreast, so that before you are able to log into your system, it should be this last 2 or 3 minutes, sir. 2 or 3 minutes periodically to ensure that you are staying on top of that, because it is that consistent awareness and engagement, sir, that allows us to minimize the potential for people to make those types of mistakes. And the truth is, sir, you know how it goes. You're a winner. You see it in the email, sir, you're a winner. You click the email and then you see a nice banner saying, oh, $100,000, $100 million is available if you do this, sir. And you're so excited because you display the lottery. It looked like the lottery. It looked like it is one of the, whether it is the Caribbean Super Lotto, the Mega Disc, whatever it is, it looks legitimate. But people fishing, sir, they're fishing. And it is this fishing compounded with the type of intelligence that people are putting out in social media anywhere about themselves. Because one of the things that people can do very easily in terms of scraping data from the internet, because most people make their lives pretty open. I mean, they put everything up there on social media, so they never really know privacy anyhow. For some people, to put everything there. So that makes it easier for people to profile, sir, who you are, and therefore would know about, okay, if I send him this, he's likely to do these things. And that is the kind of information that we put out every day through our body language. As you know, sir, human face-to-face is always a better experience because you can read people. But that body language also exists as well, sir, virtually. And therefore, what we put into cyberspace helps people to form a view as to what our likes and dislikes are and what we are susceptible to. And therefore, that is something that I would want, that as we roll this out, that certainly on the government side, as we get emails for all kinds of things, that in the same way that within the financial industry, sir, that you have things for money laundering and fraud and those types of things as part of the login process periodically. That is something that I would love to see rolled out as it relates to government and equally the private sector, because this cybersecurity thing, sir, is absolutely critical. And what you click on, sir, what you download, which websites you view, all of those things, sir, point to vulnerabilities that would allow us to be able to minimize those, but ensure that we have the right responses and protocols in place to address it. Now, sir, the Barbados Revenue Authority, the Customs Department, sir, the Treasury, have, over the course of the last 5 years, has updated all of our systems, sir, to ensure that we are as digital as possible. Still a few areas to address, sir. We are onboarding more payment solutions, and as you onboard more payment solutions to make it easier for people, sir, it means that the integration with the banks and all of that, sir, needs to be in place. And we work well together, sir, to ensure that these things happen. Now, sir, I make that point specifically because if it is, sir, and there's a specific section in the bill that speaks to how you handle data, sir. So let's say, for example, sir, and this is very, very important, because as you would be aware, sir, sometimes there's a gap, there's a lag between when a land transaction, sir, takes place and when the information is updated within either the land registry system, sir, the tax system. It shouldn't be, but there's sometimes a lag, sir, within that. So you might, sir, I might buy a piece of land from you, or you buy a piece of land from me, sir. And let's say, for example, it is a government-owned piece of property. The ownership changes, sir. The fact that the ownership changes, that information, that data point with respect to ownership, sir, should change within BRA's system, sir, as no longer being government-owned and therefore not subject to land tax, but now owned by me, sir, and should be subject to land tax. But if somehow in the middle, sir, the data is either altered or suppressed or delayed, sir, these are the kinds of things that I mentioned, sir, that we now need to make sure that people understand that we need to get these processes and these systems up to date and efficient, because there's one thing for there to be a lag. But if under investigation it is realized, sir, that somehow or the other the thing ain't changed for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, that means something is not quite right, sir. In the same token, sir, if within the context of Asekuda world, sir, yeah, duties or items are being classified incorrectly for a period of time now, but because we have systems now to do checks within the entry assessment, sir, to ensure that issues of classification and the right data is input, sir. These are issues that, as the Ministry of Finance, working with other stakeholders, especially brokers in that instance and others, sir, to ensure that people are not manipulating, sir, information to pay one set of duties when in truth, in fact, sir, there's something else that is actually being imported. And therefore, these are issues, sir, that as we roll this out, as it relates to how we introduce the Trusted Trader program and all of these types of things, sir, the trust has to be placed in someone that says, I am importing this is the information that relates to this, it is put into the system, and therefore the right kind of revenue is collected. But equally, sir, we want to make sure that everybody is aware that the intent here, sir, is not to lick and lock up, as we say, sir, because you might click the wrong thing from time to time. It is not, that is not the issue. It is that you don't want to see something where this is a phone, sir, that is supposed to attract, let's say, for example, phones and electronic stuff don't normally attract VAT. But let's say that it should have. Let's say that it should have, by the way of the classification. And therefore, you don't want to see that over a period of time, something that should have attracted VAT is being said to be a phone when it is not. And therefore, to the extent that we understand those types of issues, that the presentation or the altering of the data, whether inside the department or coming from outside, sir, these are issues that we will sensitize the stakeholders to, because as we treat to certain things from an administrative perspective, because as I said, you could click the wrong thing, you're trying to get something clear and it's a one-off thing, no problem. But when something becomes a habit, sir, you check the information, you know, okay, this is something not right. And therefore, it is on that basis then that we would be able to say to someone, well, you are either suppressing information on the one hand, altering information on another, sir, such that it becomes a crime if over a specific period of time you recognize that there are instances where this thing is over a prolonged period, and those are things that we do routinely as a matter of course, but now it means now that people will be incentivized, so to speak, sir, to ensure that the information that you enter related to something, sir, is accurate. As it relates to banking, sir, I recall a few years ago, late 2018, early 2019, sir, I received a call from my bank that asked me because I'm normally in the habit, sir, of when I'm traveling to say that the bank are going so and so, going so and so, going so and so, because I don't want the issues with the transactions. The bank calls me, sir, and says, this 2018 or early 2019, Mr. Strong, you in New York? I said, no, I'm here in Barbados. He said, well, we see activity at Gap, Forever 21, and a whole set of things in Times Square, sir. I said, well, obviously that's not me, because clearly one of the things that the financial institutions will be aware of is your spending patterns. Now, I don't know if you know, sir, but Forever 21 is a store for
You don't
ladies.
spend money at all.
Sorry?
You don't spend money at all.
No, sir. Do we need to seek counsel, sir?
But that's factual.
But as I understand it, sir, the truth is absolutely fake. So, but seriously, sir, the bank called me because they detected activity that was out of the norm, sir, for my spending patterns. So you're correct, sir. I don't spend a lot of money because I don't got a lot of it to spend, but so you're correct in that respect. So the point I'm making is that your profile, sir, or let me say your relationship with your financial institution is an important one, sir. Especially in an age where through your phone, sir, and we like to download apps and all kind of things, sir, and the in-app purchases, because things pop up on your phone, sir, you're playing a game, Candy Crush, or you're doing Tetris, or whatever it is, you know, what's in people's minds appear to be harmless, and you get a pop-up saying, oh, you can upgrade to do this, get some access to some special thing, and you click it, you put in your credit card information, you do not know who the developer is, you don't even know anything, you submit your information willingly, sir, and you do not know what is the intent for which that information is being done. Now, sir, for years I've been trying to figure out what JavaScript is, sir, and cookies. From the time we had internet access, sir, we've been accepting JavaScripts. You go on a website, sir, it asks you to accept or deny cookies, sir. I'm convinced it don't really make a difference whether you accept or deny, because it is really the programming in the back end from the click that matters. But I'm just saying, sir, that these are the things that we do habitually, sir, which we assume that the developer of the website or of the software or whatever it is, that their motives, sir, are good and pure in relation to what it is. We upgrade and we do all kinds of things, and we do so. And you know, sir, you know they have those agreements that they ask you to read, that none of us really, sir, ever read. we scroll through until the thing pop up to say continue or agree. We don't read them, so we do not actually know what we have agreed to in the first instance, but we give our information. Now, this is not to scare anybody, sir, or anything, because at the end of the day, sir, the ease with which we do business online I think has transformed the entire world. And therefore, I know that obviously the financial institutions, the payment service providers, they spend an inordinate amount of money, sir, globally, protecting their systems. But when you, sir, on your phone, playing your Candy Crush or your bingo or your dominoes or whatever it is that you do to pass leisure time, sir, determine that you are going to give your information. It's not the bank that you are giving information to. You are giving the information to some random person out there, sir, who you hope is going to give you the upgrade to the game that you're playing or whatever it is, you know, whatever. It could be anything, sir. Anything. We have to be mindful that in doing that, there is some risk. There is some risk. And therefore, to the extent that you download an app, and whether we do any reviews of it, whether we think, because, sir, sometimes the reviews themselves could be fictitious, because you can make something look, you can create a profile now, sir, online, and purchase bots, if you like, to give the impression that you got 100,000 followers. to make it seem legitimate, sir. And therefore, I don't spend a lot of time on social media, sir. I really don't. I think I know some do, but I browse occasionally just to get a sense in terms of what's happening. And if you are not careful, sir, the type of information that we are giving out about ourselves can lead to personal intrusions of our data, either from a financial perspective, where someone can go, sir. If I was so minded, I might be able to get a loan in the name of the honourable member for St. George North, sir, based on purely, sir, information that I could gather about her online. And the reality is, when the bank or the financial institution comes knocking on your door, asking, well, where the money is, somebody has done that in your name without you knowing, and then all of a sudden now you are liable for something that you have no idea about. And that is why I go back, sir, to the identity management bill that we passed in 2021 and the ID project that we've rolled out. Because it is the integration of that information, sir, within the banking sector that would give people greater comfort that nobody could turn up down Broad Street, sir, and take out a loan in your name with your address, sir, sign with your signature, and then 3 months from now, sir, bailiffs turn up at your house looking for the money. That is what we are trying to prevent, sir. That is what this government has set out as part of its mandate to ensure that it can protect its citizens, because we have to digitize, sir. We accept that we have to digitize, and therefore we have to digitize with a framework that allows us to be able to protect people, allow business to be conducted as safely and as efficiently as possible. And therefore, sir, this bill is particularly important as part of the architecture for allowing this to take place. So my simple submission, sir, is that whilst a lot of focus and time has been spent on the social media component, a lot of time has been spent, sir, on the external threats that cybersecurity poses for entities. The reality of it is that in most of what we do, sir, we have also to be mindful that there may be threats from internal to organizations, sir, that we have to be able to stay on top of, but equally at a personal level, sir, how we engage online, and I say online in its broadest sense, because it's not only from a social media perspective, how we engage online, sir, and the identity management framework, having a good relationship with your bank, sir. I know that for most people, when it comes to banks, there's obviously a discussion about fees and the like, sir, which is a legitimate discussion to have. But your relationship with your bank, with your financial institution, let me say bank, your relationship with your financial institution is such that if they recognize, sir, that something has gone wrong with your account, they should be calling you to make sure that they verify with you, sir, that that activity is legitimate, such that they can prevent, sir, any specific fraud or anything and limit the damage for which these things can happen. But as I indicated, sir, we have to come in, we are in the 21st century. We have to push ahead in relation to the upgrade of the systems, and obviously Section 12 speaks to the critical architecture. I include certainly the payment systems as a critical infrastructure. Certainly anything that falls within the Ministry of Finance is a critical infrastructure for government to be able to pay people and the like, and therefore we will do whatever we have to do, sir, as government to ensure that we protect that IT infrastructure. And certainly working with the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central and her team, I want to encourage all Barbadians that this bill is to protect all of us, sir, all of us. And in seeking to do so, if you know that you ain't got no right, sir, in Cloud Suite, or Asecuda World, sir, or TAMIS, or any land tax system, or whatever system, you have no right there, none whatsoever, then you can't complain, sir, when if you decide to go in at somebody, you decide to go in these systems and make changes that you are not approved to do, authorized to do, sir. Whether you are inside the organization or someone from outside of these organizations, sir, this bill is here to ensure not just to maintain the integrity of the system, sir, and to ensure that we can continue to deliver critical services, because it is part of how we see, sir, the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program as we reposition for growth to be able to roll out. And so, sir, I am happy to support this bill and say to Barbadians, stay focused. Let us ensure that we get these things done quickly, because the sooner that we can have these protections in place, it means that we can truly open up and to make it as easy as possible for citizens to interact with government and vice versa, such that the economy, sir, can be on a sustainable growth path. And with those words, sir, I'm vice chair.
Honourable Mr. Microsoft Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, I wish to thank sincerely members who have contributed to this debate. I believe, sir, that even where, as legislators, we are surprised by the level of public discourse, the level of discussion, the amount of concern or consternation a bill generates, even in circumstances where we are surprised, even in circumstances where we feel that there has been much background, there has been legislation that has preceded this bill and has stood for almost 20 years. Even where we sometimes do not understand the source of the concern or confusion, it is our duty, it is our responsibility to engage it, to engage the discourse. And so I am very humbled and pleased to have received all of the feedback that we have received. I want, through you, to assure the people of Barbados that we do not take lightly the concerns that have been expressed. And we have taken the time that we have taken because we do not take them lightly. There are people who, when they hear of notions, they may not have read the legislation, but their ears are to the ground and they hear notions and they are truly concerned. It is true that in some cases those notions are generated by people who have read the legislation, who do know better, who do know that it does not in fact do what they are purporting or does not threaten what they are purporting. Those people may generate concern and confusion for their own purposes, but that becomes contagious. And there are sincere, well-meaning Barbadians who have expressed some confusion, who have expressed some concern, and who have reached out to say, Minister, I hope that what I'm hearing is not true. And so it has been my responsibility and the responsibility of my colleagues who spoke before me and whom I thank, to not only engage in this debate here in this place, but to continue. That is our lot. As policymakers, as legislators, as those who serve, that is our lot. To continue to put people at ease to the extent that we can. And so I hope to be able to continue this conversation, but to stand firm on the fact that this legislation does not threaten people's freedom of speech. And this fact can be defended. It is clear in the text, it is clear in the proposed law, and we will continue to stand by that. Sir, I begin this wrap-up where the Honourable Attorney General, the Honourable Member for St. Joseph, began. And he began in a place that I think is very important, which is the Constitution of Barbados. And I make reference to the same paragraph, the same section 20 that the Honourable Member for St. James North made reference to. And I do so because I think it is very important. I think it is very important to clarify that at the very core of justice, at the very core of our understanding of justice as a society, is the balance of freedom and harm. The freedom of the individual to act in a particular way versus the harm caused to another individual or group by those actions, and it is enshrined in our Constitution. Except with his own consent, no person shall be hindered in the enjoyment of his freedom of expression, and that includes the freedom to hold opinions without interference, freedom to receive ideas and information without interference, freedom to communicate ideas and information without interference. But at 2, the Constitution is very clear that nothing contained or done under the authority of any law shall be held to be inconsistent with or in contravention of this section to the extent that the law in question makes provision at B that is reasonably required for the purpose of protecting the reputations, rights, and freedoms of other persons or the private lives of persons concerned in legal proceedings and so on. Sir, the balance of freedom and harm. That is what brings us here today. That is what brings us here on every occasion that we come to this honorable place, sir. To understand and to respond to the public purpose of a piece of legislation, the public mischief that we're trying to avoid, and overall the harm from which we are trying to protect citizens. That balance is at the core of justice, and I encourage us all to reflect on this. I asked in my recent interactions, I asked this question: what are the kinds of things that we want to be able to say that we consider that this bill will not allow us to say? What are the kinds of things that you want to be able to say that you believe that this bill is stopping you from saying? And that, I believe, is a process or triggers a process of internal reflection. Consider what it is you're about to say. Does it pass the test of truth? Does both its content and manner of communication pass the test of freedom from intimidation and freedom from harassment? If it does not pass that test, it should not require legislation to stop you from saying it. We exist in this society along with others. We exist in this society, in many cases, having to protect our neighbors, having to have regard to how our actions affect others. Bajans have long had a tradition of burning stuff, as we call it, of lighting fires in our yards to get rid of rubbish. But we know that there are people in our communities who have respiratory issues. And whether they have respiratory issues or not, whether they have health challenges or not, should be able to enjoy the freedom of not being smoked out in their own houses because you have taken a decision to burn stuff. And we have had to give them that protection under law. Sir, this is no different. Sir, I believe that it is similarly important to answer some of the concerns that have been raised, and really to reiterate some of what has been said, because it is my judgment that we are going to be called on time and again to repeat ourselves in these matters. And I don't think that is beyond us. And I think that we simply have a commitment to do it as often as is necessary until people have a certain comfort in what we represent. Sir, the question was raised about why these matters do not remain in the area of civil action. And this has already been ably addressed by speakers before me, but I think it is important to simply restate that civil action is one that requires, in many cases, personal capacity, personal, private, financial capacity to proceed. When an individual feels injured, feels harassed, feels that she or he is the subject of cyberbullying or some other offense under this act, that individual has to have the wherewithal to engage an attorney to proceed with civil action. And we consider that the harm that is likely to be caused under these kinds of offenses, by these kinds of offenses, are sufficiently large in scale and broad in scope, the damage to individuals, that the state has a right to protect those individuals under its obligation or under its capacity to take action in the criminal, against these individuals as a criminal offense. It is quite simply that the state has a responsibility to protect, and the state cannot proceed to take civil action against an individual. But the fact is that these are not personal matters. Sir, there are jurisdictions that have had to remove the decision of proceeding with prosecution from the complainant. There have been jurisdictions where the complainant had to be the one to agree to proceed with a charge of sexual assault or to proceed with a charge of grievous bodily harm, and so on. But those jurisdictions determined that, in fact, this is sufficiently injurious to the society as a whole, to the core of who we are, that we're going to remove that duty or that responsibility from you. We don't need the complainant to be able to proceed. We don't need the alleged victim to be able to proceed, even if the alleged victim does not wish to proceed. There are crimes that are sufficiently damaging to the entire society and that sufficiently undermine the values therein that we will proceed anyway. And I say that to say that this notion that things are just private matters between two people, sir, we had to remove that categorization and that characterization from gender-based violence. There was a time when an individual, a woman seeking protection under the law, would be told by those in authority, ma'am, this is a private matter. But it cannot be a private matter. Because if the offense had been done to me, not in my living room, but 50 yards outside at the bus stop, it would not be a private matter. The state has a duty to protect in all spaces. Wherever people live, do their work, have their expression, the state has a duty to protect. And the fact that in 2024, those spaces include online environments means that we have to get ourselves together and bring legislation that covers those environments. So I also have to speak very clearly to some of the concerns that have been raised about the process by which this bill was developed. I've noticed that there has been this claim that the Barbados Cybercrime Bill does not have reference to the second additional protocol of the Budapest Convention, and that people have raised this as something that we must be concerned about. So let me say the following. The second additional protocol to the Budapest Convention, that the treaty that governs what we have done here, the treaty with which we have aligned this legislation with the help of the very Council of Europe that is responsible for that treaty. That second additional protocol was approved on the 17th of November, 2021. And it was open for signature in May 2022. So, sir, that by the time Barbados was finalizing this legislation in September of 2023 up until December, all of the issues raised in the protocol, the very reason that the protocol was added, were accounted for and included in the drafting of this bill. But let me go a bit further. The truth is that the additional protocol has 2 chapters. The first is with respect to language. So the various languages that are covered, because remember that this is a treaty that covers more than one country. And the Chapter 2, which addresses measures for enhanced cooperation with other territories. So really, the additional parts of the protocol do not go to the substance of the bill, do not go to the substance of any model legislation. They go to the way in which the parties collaborate with each other, as well as the language. But even so, it is not true to say, it is false to suggest, and sir, we're concerned today with matters of truth, objective verification, that the bill does not include the additional protocol. Because of the fact that since 2021, between 2021 and December 2023, we have continuously engaged the Council of Europe. That means that everything contemplated by the Council, all of the additions that they have made, are included in this legislation. But sir, I want to go a little bit further, because while we welcome and continue to welcome all of the engagement that we have had, we also feel that that engagement, all of the experts, all of the individuals who have a perspective, have to do so in good faith. I believe that if we engage, sir, when we go to the public of Barbados to tell them you must be concerned about that the government is doing A and B, do so in good faith, and do so, sir, with the full context. Give the country the full context. Sir, people may be interested to know that I would say one of the principal critics, but I will say the principal critic. And I don't use critic as a bad word. Criticism is good. Critical consideration of what the government does is good. But the principal critic of the legislation and I believe people will know who I mean, wrote a paper whose publication date is January 13th, 2018, on behalf of or commissioned by the EU Commission. And that paper was meant to be a cybersecurity assessment of Barbados. January 2018, this report was written. And it says, this is written by the person who has been the most vocal about this legislation. And he writes, the Computer Misuse Act 2005 should be updated to include online exploitation of children, popular attack vectors and techniques, sexual violence online, cyber terrorism. Sir, you will note that all of these are covered under prohibited conduct in this legislation. I continue. Committing preparatory acts for cybercrime and other pertinent offenses. He continues, Barbados should seriously consider signing on to the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. The benefits of this decision include harmonization of domestic substantive law elements with global standards and best practices. Global standards and best practices. This individual was this week saying that the Budapest Convention does not represent the best practice in cybercrime. Barbados should seriously consider signing on to the Budapest Convention on Cybercrime. The benefits of this decision, sir, include harmonization of domestic substantive law elements with global standards and best practices, enhancing criminal procedural law powers, and setting up a quick and effective regime for international cooperation. I did not write that. The gentleman wrote that in 2018. If we are going to go to the country and raise concerns, sir, do so with the full context. I thought it was important to make that clear. Because, sir, this government recognizes that we are a small island, large ocean state, but small island state, that will need, in everything that we do, to draw on all the resources that we have. And we have tremendous talent here. So it is no benefit to the government to fail to or refuse to engage any individual. But my only humble request is that we do so honestly, and that if each party that is bringing ideas to contend together does so in full honesty, then every Barbadian will win. There is no one-upmanship to be had here. If we are honest and clear in our desire to make Barbados better, let us engage honestly in that regard, sir. Sir, I have to come to the notion, even though others have addressed it, that this legislation is meant to protect politicians. And the only thing I will say in that regard is that the legislation requires, establishing something as prohibited conduct requires the test of truth. And all I will say to you, to Barbadians, is that if you have objective facts that are in evidence elsewhere, you can make reference to these facts. If the thing is true about any member in here, if you have a fact that can be proven about any member, then you have the freedom to have a perspective on those facts. And I don't think anyone has ever disagreed with that. If you don't like the hairstyle of a member of parliament, not that is material to the work that we do, but you certainly are at liberty to say. If you don't like the look of the individual, if you feel free to have a perspective, if you have something that you wish to bring to public attention, that you can prove that someone has done, this legislation does not stop you from doing that, but you have a responsibility to reference something that is a fact. And I will forever defend the right of Barbadians to have a perspective on the conduct of politicians that they can prove. That is a part of our freedom. That is a part of the freedom of democracy of our political system. But I don't want us to get confused. This legislation is crafted, is created, is conceptualized, not to protect people who have the wherewithal to bring civil action if they so choose. They will have the responsibility to prove defamation in whatever situation. This legislation is not about protecting people who can protect themselves or who have the wherewithal so to do. People used to say, there used to be a saying, pick on someone your own size. So it is not, and I don't use the term political class because I don't believe there's such a thing. Because I believe that there are those of us who are still very firmly, by virtue of our families and how our families live, still very much affixed in the socioeconomic class that we grew up in. And the notion of political class suggests certain privileges that do not exist for all of us in this chamber. So I use the word politicians. This is not about politicians. This is about the young people who find themselves in the thick of a morass online and do not know where to turn. I use the example, sir, a gentleman said, why don't politicians go and solve the real issues that affect people? And I said to the gentleman, sir, and he said, this is about people's income and whether people can earn money and whether people can pay for what they want. And I said to him, sir, if you are a plumber and somebody goes online or via WhatsApp says that the member for St. Peter is a plumber, but when he watch it, because when he go in your house, he's taking your things. And circulates that online with no regard for whether it is true or not. And then that member realizes that the calls that he used to get to come and fix something here and there, he's not getting anymore. People no longer trust him to enter their homes because a rumor has been spread that he is not to be trusted around people's possessions. And sooner or later, he will lose his income. He will no longer be able to support his family. It will have repercussions for his children and their education and their health. If that is not a basic matter of being able to live and pay your bills, I do not know what is. This legislation protects people's lives and their livelihoods. And I encourage us to expand our brains to understand, expand our minds to understand that anything, sir, that is defamatory, if you write it with a marker and put it on a telephone pole, anything that is slanderous, if you stand up in Spray Street and shout it, anything that is libelous or slanderous and therefore is defamatory anywhere else is defamatory under this act. Nothing more, nothing less. And all this does is seek to protect people wherever they live their lives and wherever they engage. Sir, in closing, all I will say is the following. We cannot, on the one hand, be concerned about the security of our data or data that is in the hands of the state, and on the other, suggest that this cybercrime legislation is not needed. Someone asked yesterday about the digital ID. And I think that there's also a misconception about where this data is stored. The data, name, identifying information, and so on, that is accessible with your ID is the register of electors at the EBC. That is how that data is kept. That one place by the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. There's no further access that is gained unless you give that access. In other words, unless you give authority to any other actor. And when the pin and chip technology is widespread in financial institutions, and also when the mobile ID is established, which means that the small businesses will not need that pin and chip infrastructure in order to access your information with your authority. In other words, see and verify your address. That data is stored nowhere else. It is your information that you used to have on the face of your card, and it is kept as it has been for decades as the register of electors at the Electoral and Boundaries Commission. There has been much talk, sir, about other cybersecurity measures that we are taking because this legislation cannot stand on its own. And so as we continue to speak to the country, we will continue the work and share with the country those aspects of that work that we are at liberty to share, because I will reiterate that these are national security issues. We will continue to talk to the country about our work to make sure we keep identifying and auditing those agencies that constitute critical infrastructure, and make sure that we have an inventory of those, a continuous assessment and audit of those, risk-based assessment of those national critical systems, conducting cybersecurity exercises to test that critical infrastructure, establishing teams that continue to monitor the cybersecurity framework, continue to make sure that there's enterprise security, that there's acceptable use of technology, that we strengthen data protection measures, and especially the Office of the Data Commissioner as a regulatory body that should have reporting responsibility, not just to the minister, except in cases of breaches of private data. And so these are conversations that we continue to have. Importantly, we have to make sure that there's what the strategy calls a cybersecurity mindset. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central spoke about it at length in his very worthy intervention. That it is not just about what the state does to protect data and protect people from criminal interference. It is also about making sure that people understand that if somebody sends you a link that you're not sure about, don't click on it because you don't know where it's going to take you. If you're not sure that it's a secure payment portal, do not enter your credit or debit card information. These are the kinds of things that we have to strengthen understanding about. And we also have a responsibility as the ministry the ministry that is responsible for managing cybersecurity and the cybersecurity strategy, to make sure that the private sector is doing what it needs to do to secure you as citizens, because even though their data may not be interacting with government's data, we also have a responsibility to make sure that they're doing what is necessary to continue to protect the country, and that work continues. The last area of work that we will continue to invest more in and more heavily in is to look at the cyber skills shortage that we have, and to make sure that not just those people who are responsible for IT governance already in the roles that they play in and outside government, that those people's skills continue to be strengthened, but also to make sure that we have some succession planning when it comes to IT governance, to make sure that we are raising a nation of people with that facility, with that capacity, even if they will not go into a specific job in that regard. But this is a functional skill. This is a competency that is required to be alive today. And that has to be threaded all the way through the system, both in formal and non-formal education. So, sir, I end by reiterating the commitment of this government to protect citizens from cybercrime. I repeat that it is not a slick or sexy issue. It is an issue that goes to the heart of protecting people's lives and livelihoods and futures and how they wish to express themselves. I encourage Barbadians through you, sir, to read the legislation. It's not very long. And I do think that it is simply presented. But we will also endeavor, along with the Ministry of Innovation, to share some smaller bits, smaller bites about what the legislation does and does not do, because I do believe it is our duty to take people in our confidence and to let people know that wherever their concerns are expressed, that we take seriously our duty to reassure and explain. Sir, I commend this bill to this honorable chamber and beg to move that it be read a second time.
Question is that this bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against it, please say no. Me think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg that you do now leave the chair and that the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now This Honourable House is now in committee.
Mr. Chairman, request permission to call in parts, please. Part 1, clauses 1 to 3.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move the amendment of Clause 1. The bill was introduced as approval of the Cybercrime Bill 2023, and the as the Cybercrime Bill 2023, I beg to move an amendment to Cybercrime Bill 2024.
The question is that Clause 1 stand par as amended. All honourable members in favour, say aye. All honourable members against, say no. I think the ayes have it.
Part 2, clauses 4 to 22.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clauses 4 to 22 stand part.
The question is that part 2, clauses 4 to 22 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Part 3, clauses 23 to 33.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that part 3, clauses 23 to 33 stand part.
Beg to second that.
The question is that part 3, clauses 23 to 33 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Schedule.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the schedule be the schedule to the bill.
The question is that the schedule be the schedule to the bill. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do not report to His Honor, the Speaker, the passing of one bill in committee with amendment.
The question is that I do not report to His Honor, the Speaker, the passing of one bill in committee with amendment. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
The chairman of committees has reported the passing of one bill in committee with amendments.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now read a third time.
Beg to second.
The question is that the bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the Cybercrime Bill 2024.
Beg to second.
The question is that the bill be passed and so cited. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited.
Order number 2, sir. In the name of the Honorable Minister of Industry, Innovation, Science and Technology, to move the second reading of the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Amendment Bill 2024.
Honorable members to Microsoft Central.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
The question is that the bill be read a second time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that you do now leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that the Speaker do not leave the chair and the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
This House is now in committee.
Clause 1.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move an amendment to Clause 1 from the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Bill 2023 to the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Bill 2024.
The question is that Clause 1 stand part as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 2 to 6.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clauses 2 to 6 stand part.
The question is that clauses 2 to 6 stand part. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that you do now report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee as amended.
The question is that I do now report to His Honor the Speaker the passing of one bill in committee as amended. All honorable members in favor, say aye. Honorable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Chairman of committees has reported the passing of one bill in committee with amendment.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now read a third time.
Question is that the bill be read a third time. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Amendment Act 2024.
The question is that this bill be passed and so cited. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This bill is passed and so cited.
The Speaker revert to messages from Her Excellency, the President.
I'm in receipt of a letter from the President dated 5th February 2024. There, Mr. Speaker, I shall be away from the alien on duty leave during the period 6th to 8th of February 2024. In accordance with the provisions of Section 33 of the Constitution, the Very Reverend Dr. Jeffrey Douglas Gibson will perform the functions of the office of the President during my absence. As the House of Assembly will not be meeting prior to my departure, it will not be possible for the usual formal message to be sent to your chamber. Will you therefore please bring my absence formally to the attention of the Honourable the House of Assembly when next it meets? Yours faithfully, President.
Revert to government business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move the suspension of the House until 3 p.m.
Second.
The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 3 p.m. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. Methinks the ayes have it. This honourable chamber stands suspended until 3 p.m.